Next, we will move on to our treasurer tax collector, Pat Sullivan, will be giving the presentation for this.
Yeah, I've went 15 minutes.
All right. Well, hello again. Patrick Sullivan, Treasurer Tax Collector. I will try to go quickly through these slides, given the time. But starting off with our 2024 accomplishments in the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office, just again, we have the Treasury Division, tax collections, and then we also have collections, which is court collections and general county collections for debt that's owed to the county. So we completed an RFQ for custodial banking services. We'd had an increase in costs. Our grandfathered agreement was severed, so we had to go out and figure out a new way to approach things. We also completed an RFQ for short-term rental software. We ended up going with a company called Dept. So they're going to aid us in enforcement through identification and auditing. They'll help identify short-term rental locations. This may be helpful for other county departments as well, code enforcement or planning, anyone else that's looking into the issue of short-term rentals. We implemented electronic payment options for multiple departments with credit card and e-check and other electronic payments. We have implemented third-party agency collections programs for court collections and probation cases. We established a tax intercept program through State Controller's Office and Franchise Tax Board. We've migrated existing cases from probation. So I guess I should just clarify this. Previously, collections on court-ordered debt, so any debt that was coming out of a criminal case or a traffic case, was split between our office and probation. This was leading to some inefficiencies, especially when there were defendants who owed victim restitution. So we did, probation had a very small amount of cases compared to us. We are consolidating all of that court-related enforcement into our office, which will streamline it. So we've taken probation system and merged it with ours, which has required some significant upgrades on both sides and is still kind of work in progress, but that has been accomplished to a workable level. So next slide. We've established access and conducted staff training with Metric for cannabis enforcement. We've initiated, partially with the help of Metric data, our first round of county cannabis business tax audits. So we're looking at dispensaries and some of the other business first. We're also beginning to look at cultivation sites. We've conducted a Chapter 7 tax sale with a target of 1,000 properties. Ultimately, some fall off due to redemptions and bankruptcies and other issues. We sold 23 properties through Chapter 8 sales to the city of Clear Lake. We have initiated Chapter 8 sales for special districts. There are a few hurdles involved in those. There's some complications and different circumstances. Some of the properties require city approval. That actually just happened. Some other ones are going to require a few extra steps before it can go to the state controller. We expanded lockbox payment processing operations for property tax. I would note that so far this year, we've had just over 21,000 checks processed through Lockbox. Those are all envelopes that would have normally had to be processed by our staff. That was leading to a lot of those backlogs in those prior years. It's over $25 million that's run through the Lockbox program so far this year. And that's with the first installment and some second installment for property tax. Treasury pool we covered earlier, we continue to develop those. We've also completed significant banking upgrades, both operationally and for cybersecurity. So a lot of upgrades with our banking systems there. So looking forward into 2025, these top three are sort of tied together. Over time, although our office did add new software systems, we did not fully convert to them. So for instance, Megabyte, our property tax system, we retained certain legacy systems, and we did not fully transition to Megabyte, which means our office operates in a mixture of Megabyte, Access, Excel, and other systems in there. Similar with Treasury, we're operating in an AS400 system on certain aspects of it. Some of it is in cloud-based system, which ultimately we're hoping to move out of as soon as we can because there are significant operational concerns and a limited capacity to fix anything. RevQ, we touched on that, same idea. We never fully transitioned into it. So it's a little daunting, but we are working on that over the next year to basically fully transition into the software systems that we acquired 10 to 20 years ago and consolidate there. We're going to complete the transition of custodial banking holdings and operations from U.S. Bank to BMO. They were the winning bidder. So that's going to be another significant undertaking for our treasury. We continue Chapter 7 sales and additional Chapter 8 sales of eligible tax defaulted properties. I would note this has been complicated by some of those technology concerns. For instance, the assessor's office even updating their technology to new software has broken some of the links that we had that would have, made our task a little simpler. In the long term, this will benefit us, but as we upgrade these systems, it's complicating and changing the ways that we have to do it and leading to more manual work this year as we upgrade. We're going to pursue new enforcement opportunities for transient occupancy tax. That's the software we discussed earlier, and that'll cover both delinquent and unregistered operators. We'll continue development of Treasury, touched on that already. We're going to continue modernizing and upgrading the deferred compensation plan. Our county's deferred compensation plan hadn't really been adjusted with some of the more modern offerings or plan options for participants. So we're going ahead and working through those and bringing them online. That's especially important given PEPRA for those that are on the reduced tier. I think it's really valuable to make sure people have access to deferred comp plan with those offerings. We'll continue development of the cannabis tax programs. There are some legislative updates needed. We need to bring back the new ordinance. There's a few things I'm waiting to see what happens with the task force on the cultivation side before a revised tax ordinance is brought forward, but you should be seeing that from us once those are resolved. We'll continue with boosting audits and enforcement actions. We continue to monitor impacts to court collections at state and local levels. This program, I know I've touched on it before, does present some issues of concern for the county. The state has made many legislative changes. A lot of the legislation has reduced the amount of fines and fees that are offered, yet the county remains on the hook for various payments to the state. Even more importantly, victim restitution. There's less funding for it than before. We have the ability to enforce victim restitution orders, but we do so completely at our own expense. So that is a service the county provides to victims, but we are not reimbursed for it. So that is increasingly what is owed on cases, and it takes priority over the fines and fees owed to the county. So if a victim's owed, we collect on that first. So in the long term, as that grows, that presents a sort of an unfunded mandate for us. We're going to continue development of unsecured property tax enforcement. We're actually going to be utilizing shortly a third-party contractor that about a dozen other counties have used. They're going to do similar to court collections, go after some of the delinquent debt while we focus on the more current debt. Finally, we'll continue to expand electronic banking and payment options. So that's it for me.
Supervisor Owen?
What would be the cost of using the contractor to collect?
So we use contractors on each of these different programs, on court collections, on unsecured. There's sometimes different tiers depending on how old the debt is, but I would say the typical range, depending on the kind of debt that's collected, is 20 to 30%. I think in a lot of cases, especially on the newer debt, we can do it cheaper in-house.
Yes, that's what I was looking.
So we're trying to limit it. Like in court collections, we don't send it until we have failed in our other options.
Okay.
So it's a reserved tier.
All right. Open it up to the public. Anyone on Zoom? All right, I'll close public input, bring it back to the board. Supervisor Sabatier?
I just want to thank for starting the Chapter 8 sales. I think that I believe even the city of Lakeport has interest in some action there. And so I just think overall that the change of pace compared to what we have, that's putting the properties in the right hands to be able to do public benefits with it. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Also excited about the short-term rental. I know we've been talking about that, and I'm glad to see that there's some movement and whatnot, because I know that that's gonna help, right?
I hope so.
All right, if there's nothing else, so we'll go ahead and we'll close this part of the presentation. Thank you